morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'm KT, and this is What Happened. Tonight, we're going to start a new series. It's called Judges in the Bible. I'm not going to go in any particular order, so I have decided to start with Samson. So if you're ready for a story of strength, bad choices in women, and treachery, sit back, relax, and let's buckle up for a wild ride. Before we get started, let me quickly tell you who the judges in the Bible were. So there was a period in the Bible after Joshua died and before the first king was appointed, who was Saul, where you had these judges who were essentially rulers, or at least a leadership figure. The monarchy that started with King Saul ended the reign of the judges. With that, let's go into part 1, entitled Given a Destiny. To kick this off, we want to talk about a couple who was unable to have children. Now, it is important to note that during this time, you had the Israelites who would fall in and out of favor based on if they were doing unacceptable things in the sight of God. When they would do unacceptable things, God would put them back in captivity. So yeah, really strict punishment. At this time, the Israelites were under the Philistines, and we will get into some other things because they had been put under some other people as well. The other thing about the judges are the judges were supposed to lead them back into freedom, into a point and period again where they wouldn't be reigned by anyone else. But let's talk about a lady named Zora and her husband named Manoah. We don't know exactly how old she is at the time of the story, but we do know that she had been barren, unable to have children. So one day, Zora was out, because I assume the people in the Bible were always outside, and a man came to her. Immediately, she assumed that this man was an angel. Either way, he had a message for her. He said, "It's true that you don't have any children, but you will bear a son." This is when he gave her rules. He said, "Please be careful. Do not drink off the vine. Don't drink wine. And also don't eat any unclean meats. When your son is born, no razor shall touch his head, because your child is going to be a Nazarite to God from the womb," meaning as soon as he's born. So let's clear up some things, because we like to break it down over here. What is a Nazarite? The interesting thing is a Nazarite was a particular Israelite who chose to take a vow to God. So this is already different because Samson is not choosing that. I think that's a very important part of this story. He was given this destiny. He did not choose it. But in general, a Nazarite did choose it, and they in general chose to live by 3 rules. No wine or spirits, no cutting of the hair, no contact with dead bodies, even your relatives. Now, what is an unclean food, KT? I had to look this up, and I found it in Leviticus chapter 11, Deuteronomy chapter 14. There are 3 categories of unclean animals. So for a land animal, to be a clean animal, you have to chew cud and have a split hoof or split hooves. That would be like cows or sheep. So an unclean animal may have one or the other. You may have a split hoof, but you don't chew cud. You may chew cud but not have a split hoof. It would make it an unclean animal. So for example, a pig will chew anything, right? A camel would be an example of an unclean animal. So that's my understanding of it. That's a land animal. Category 2, a sea animal, because I did not know this. To be a clean sea animal, you have to have scales and fins. Most fish would probably be okay, but for example, my favorite food, shrimp, would be an unclean thing, and baby, I be tearing shrimp up, okay? And for birds, it would be like birds of prey from my understanding. So like a vulture or even an eagle, those are all birds of prey and they would be unclean. Let's get back into the story. So Zora has run into this man who she assumed was an angel. Naturally, she runs back. She tells her husband Manoah, "Babe, I saw a man. I think he was an angel. And he said we're going to have a son. He gave me some rules I need to follow." Manoah's like, wait a minute. What was this man's name? I didn't ask his name because I assumed he was an angel. Manoah said, "Zora, what did he tell you to do?" And she told him exactly what the man said, the 3 rules. But Manoah said, "Where's this man at? Because I need to talk to him." So Manoah prayed and he said, "Lord, please send the man back that you sent to talk to my wife." And it happened. Zora was back out in the fields. The man approached again, but her husband wasn't nowhere to be found. So Zora ran off looking for her husband, like, "Where is this man?" She finds him. She says, "Come on, because that man, he is out here and you were not there. So catch up, honey." So he goes out, he meets the man, and Manoah says, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And I'm like, "Your wife?" Because at this point, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, y'all. But at this point, I'm like, I don't know if he believed her. And of course, the guy says, yes, it was me. He confirms it. Manoah said, "You told her we having a son. What are the rules for the boy's life?" So he repeated it again. Let's repeat it again to make sure we got it. He said, "Be careful what you drink. Don't drink the wine. Don't eat the fruits from the vine. Don't eat unclean animals. And do not cut that boy's hair." 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, bam. Simple. Manoah says, "Okay, well, let me keep you here and I will get a goat and we'll cook that goat up for your dinner." The man says, don't do that for me. If you're going to do anything, do it for the Lord. Then Manoah, because he's smart, he said, what's your name? And the man said, what do you need to know my name for? And basically he says something to the effects, and this is me summarized, like seeing is believing. Manoah, he took that goat, he actually sacrificed it on the altar, but then something amazing happened, guys. The man went up in the flames from the sacrifice from the goat. They saw him ascend back up, we assume to heaven, right? And they could not believe what they had seen. And Manoah, being Manoah, he quickly said, oh my gosh, because we saw this, we are surely gonna die. His wife Zora said, babe, why would you let us see it? You told us we having a baby. He done told us all this stuff, shown us all this stuff, we good. And sure enough, they were. Time goes by and she has the baby. He is a boy. She names him Samson. Next, let's go to part 2. Part 2 is called You Can't Trick a Trickster. Time has gone by and Samson is an adult, and Samson likes him a pretty woman. Samson is in a place called Timnah, and also there are places in the Bible where the person's name is the place. So look, he was in, I think, a city named Timnah. He saw some Philistine women. So again, the Philistines are ruling the Israelites. Among these women, he sees one that he's like,
that's a fine one.
She caught his eye. So he went back to his mother and father and said, I saw this woman, go get her. I want her to be my wife. And his mom and daddy said, now boy, you can't find one of your women from your own background to be with. But Samson did not care about those things. He was like, this is who I want to be with. But also Samson liked to set up traps. So even though he was really interested in this woman, he always has some kind of plan going on. He told his mom and daddy, look, go get her. She pleases me well. That's just what he said, y'all, okay? So they go back to Timnah. While they're there, at some point he goes down to the vineyards, and out of nowhere, a lion pops up. It springs forward and it's in attack mode. Baby, the lion is doing what the lion is doing. In that exact moment where that lion was like, ah, baby, something came over Samson. It was like a spirit. It's described in the Bible as the spirit of the Lord, and he just felt strong. He grabbed that lion and he just ripped it apart. I mean, what? They are hanging around this city because he's going to marry this woman. And I don't even think we ever get a name for her, but baby, the story is good. So anyway, during this time, he's going back and forth to the vineyard. The carcass of the lion is still there, and he never tells anybody about this lion. At some point, he notices that the bees have established like a colony there and started to create honey. So he goes into the dead carcass of the lion and gets honey and is like, this is good. So he gets some more and takes it to his parents, and they eat it like that's good. Now keep in mind, Samson not supposed to even touch dead things. So when he killed the lion, fine, but he should not have touched it again. Longwell is eating honey out of the body, baby. But you know, this is what he did, and he knew the rules. But again, that's why it's important to remember, Nazarites chose the light, but for some reason, that's not what happened with Samson. And we're going to get there why I think that happened. They eat the honey, and the feast started. At this feast, it was loaded with the bride's family and community, meaning mostly Philistines, because other than Samson's mother and father, he didn't bring any of his people with him. At some point, there are 30 Philistine men. Samson says, let me pose a riddle to you. If I win and you cannot guess the riddle by the end of the feast is 7 days. Also, guys, in the Bible, 7 is a very important number. It will reoccur over and over in many stories, even in this one. If you don't guess it by the 7 days, then you all have to give me one garment apiece. If I lose, then I have to give you all a garment apiece. That's 30 items of clothing that Samson would have to get. Now I'm sitting here, reading this like, did Samson have that money? That money. Okay, I don't know, y'all. But anyway, I thought that was a lot. Here's the riddle. I want to read it because I want to get it right. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. So you already get what he's talking about, right? But these men, they are trying to think. And baby, they don't know what this riddle means. Because let's be honest, who would know this riddle unless you were there when he killed the lion, then came back and found the honey? Really, baby, Samson was cheating on this riddle, but it was fair because they accepted the challenge and they didn't have to, right? 3 days of the 7-day feast go by and they can't explain nothing. So you know what they do? They go to Samson's new wife, because this feast is a marriage feast. So they are married now. They tell her, woman, you need to entice your husband, get him all happy and going, and ask him what the riddle is, and you got to come back and tell us. Because if you don't, are y'all ready for this? We're going to burn your house down, which is her father's house. We're going to light that thing on fire. Now, they did say that. I didn't put 20 on it, y'all. They went a step further and said, you invited us, so you must have did it to take what is ours. We shouldn't have to buy your husband no garment. So if you invited us, you must have did it to take our money. So baby, the woman went to Samson. She fell on him and she was crying. Husband, you gotta tell me the answer to the riddle. And this is how she did it, y'all. She was like, they may not know it, but if you really love me, I should know it. I should know it even if they don't know it, because how can you prove you love me? And she was crying. You don't really love me. That's another Bible Karen, honey. I'm trying to tell y'all, it's a Bible Karen. He said, girl, I ain't even told my mama and my daddy the answer to the riddle. Why should I tell you? He did not tell her, y'all. We go on by day 4, day 5, day 6. It is day 7. She still has not gotten Samson to tell her what the answer is, and she has not been able to report it back. So she is scared, because they're threatening to burn down her father's house. But, to me, she could have just told her husband that, like, this is what they threatening to do, to see if he had a solution, because she didn't even check with him. She was desperate. So she came in and she was crying again. She'd been crying every day. This thing got on Samson's nerves. So he told her about the lion, about the honey, and she went right back and told the 30 men. At the very end of the feast on the last day, they come to him and they say, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? So they solved the riddle. Let me tell y'all what Samson said, because he did say this, okay? He said, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Plowed with my heifer is like when you used a ox or a cow to pull a plow and sow the field, right, to dig things up, because you're digging up weeds, digging up rocks to turn the dirt. He might not have known they threatened her, but he did say, y'all think I don't know y'all was dealing with my wife and then she told y'all the answer? Y'all would have never got it if she hadn't told y'all. It just gets crazier and crazier. At this point, Samson owes them 30 outfits. They need a makeover and a glow up. So he goes down to another city. It's called Ashkelon. He goes down there. 30 Philistine men takes their clothes and goes over there and takes it to the men at the wedding feast. Say, here your new clothes. Baby, the pettiness. But he said they cheated, so he cheated. Now, this is crazy, right? Oh, goodness. Taking the lives ain't equal, but this is what he did. After he gave them the clothes, Samson was so mad. He was mad that she betrayed him, really. So he went back to his father's house. This is important. After he went to his father's house, her father gave her to his best man. I mean, basically, this was his best man at the wedding. It was his friend and companion. So her father said, here, she yours now. Let's jump forward just a little bit. Samson is calm again. He goes back to get his wife and to try to see her. When he does, her father stops him. He said, look, you can't go see her. I gave her to your bestie because I thought you didn't want her no more. Now let's talk about how there's a lot of assumptions going on here. Yes, Samson left. He shouldn't have left without saying anything, but also, I don't know how long he was gone because you just gave his wife to his best friend. And I felt like that was a deal because you could have gave her to anybody, right? Why his best friend? So anyway, he says, look, I thought you hated her. I really did. You can have her younger sister if you want. So Samson said, last time when I went at all those people, y'all said I was wrong and that was my fault. But this time, I'm going to be blameless. So I'm like, oh, shoot, he choosing violence, right? I mean, literal violence. This was a multi-part plan. Samson first went and caught 300 foxes by the tail. That's a whole lot of doggone foxes. Even if you got super strength, he must have been running around the fields all day. He then got a torch. He placed the foxes together, booty to booty, so that their tails are together. He then lit the tails, the fox tails, on fire and turned them loose. They on fire and they animals. So baby, they was running all through the fields, all everywhere. They done burn all the little fields up, all the grain. Samson done burnt all the Philistines' grain up in the town. Y'all, once they found out what he did, they said, we're going to get revenge. So they went to find out what happened, and they found out that his wife's father had gave her to his friend. So do you know what they did as revenge for him burning down the crops? They burned his wife up and her father. Yeah, this is a story of like reactions that aren't equal. Even though burning their fields down was a big deal, doggone, them two people lives, but their own people, because they were Philistine too. Baby, they burnt them up. Done. Done. Inventive in the Bible, okay? After Samson had burnt the fields down, he immediately went and hid in like a cave. I think it was in the land of Judah. The Philistines heard that Samson was there, so they went to the men of Judah and said, look, you need to bring us Samson. And they said, why did you come up against us? Because if he here, like, we didn't have nothing to do with that. Basically, they said, look, go get him or it's going to be some consequences. The men of Judah, they took 3,000 men down to their cave. And they told Samson, you need to turn yourself in, let us arrest you. And they also told him, dang, do you not know they rule over us? You can't just be doing any old thing to them because they are in charge of us. And he's like, I know who they are, but look, I will turn myself in if you promise not to harm me. And they said, look, we just want to bind you. We will not harm you. Because that was Samson's big thing. Just promise you will not try to me and I will voluntarily go. Because Samson, again, he be thinking he had a plan. So they bound him in all the ropes, right? They took him down. And when Samson got down there, the Philistine men immediately started shouting and yelling at him. And again, that feeling, that spirit, that strength came over him. He yanked those ropes off like they were straw. Like single pieces of straw, and he found a donkey's jawbone. Yes, baby, I said a jawbone of a donkey. He 1,000 men with a jawbone. I would be like, Samson on them roids, y'all. He on them roids, but Samson said he was on the Lord. They ended up calling that place Ramath Lehi. That literally translates to jawbone height. Crazy word. After he had 1,000 men, baby, Samson was thirsty. He said to the Lord, you gonna let me die of thirst with these? He called them filthy, uncircumcised people. You know, goodness gracious, Samson. You didn't 1,000 of them. I mean, did we really have to go there? But if you watched my Brothers of Joseph story, you know that even in other cultures, that was something that was big because the Hebrews, the Israelites believed in circumcision. They used that to their advantage for other situations. Check out my Siblings of Joseph story. I'm going to link it at the end. So anyway, it was a hollow place. God split the land and water came out, so Samson was able to drink and replenish. And he called that in Hakor, spring of the caller, because he called to God and he gave him water. Samson, again, was a judge of Israel, and he judged Israel for 20 years. Let's go on to part 3. I'm going to call part 3 Samson and Delilah. I thought of a real cute, cheeky name, but I was like, let's just keep it to where we know it. So let's start off with more time has passed, and now Samson is going to Gaza. So before we get to Delilah, let's talk about what happened to Samson in Gaza. The Gazites were given forewarning that Samson was coming. So they came up with what they felt like was a foolproof plan. The city had a gate, and so they decided that they would lay in wait around the gate, and they were going to lay there all night, and they would catch him in the morning when he came through, and they would defeat Samson because the plan was to him. However, Samson was 3 steps ahead. He actually found a different spot and laid low until midnight. Remember, they waited until morning to spring the attack. He's laying low until midnight, so he's coming out before them. And at midnight, he woke himself up, and to escape because they had him surrounded, he plucked out the entire city gate, took it up the hill, planted it, and he made sure it faced Hebron. So let's break down the significance of that. Number one, we know that Samson was super strong. So they had surrounded the gate and all of this, and all he needed to do was pick the whole gate up. And he did that. So it kind of made them look a little foolish as it was, and it was a display of his strength. You know, he was flexing, quite literally and figuratively. But then he took it on the hill and he faced it towards Hebron. He faced the gate towards his people, the Israelites. It was like adding insult to injury because it was kind of symbolizing that they now had the power, or at least that the power was shifting. Oh, and Samson was only in Gaza to meet a harlot, and we've already talked about how this just means a sex worker in the Bible. After this, he goes on about his business and he sees Delilah. He falls in love with Delilah. When they say Samson fell in love with women, I don't know if they mean love, or he like that ooh wee. It's probably a combination of both sometimes. But either way, when the Philistine leaders heard that he had fallen in love with Delilah, they immediately wasted no time in approaching Delilah. And they said, look, we need you to find out what makes your man strong. We need to find out so that we can afflict him, meaning we need to use his information against him so we can conquer him, take his strength, and take him out as an enemy. He has a lot of us. They offer her, wait for this, 1,100 pieces of silver each. I don't know how many leaders approached her. I take it back. I went back and looked. It was 5 leaders. So that's 5,500 pieces of silver. People give Delilah a lot of flack, but a lot of people would have took them up on that offer. And that's just being real. Not everybody, but a lot of people would have done it. Probably some of the very people that judged her for doing it. You did not have to tell Delilah twice. She's like, all right. So she immediately starts to talk to Samson about this. She's like, baby, you know, you never told me what makes you strong. Is it something that I can bind you with that would afflict you, you know, that would ail you, hurt you, make you not be strong? And let me say this about Samson. For every questionable thing he does, he's very smart, but it seems always to be a woman that's kind of like, I don't want to say the downfall of him, but in this case, very much so, right? No spoiler alert there. He had a weakness for women. Like, he would let them kind of undermine what his common sense would tell him. He had a story immediately. He said, if you get 7 fresh bowstrings before they have dried and you bind me in them, then I'll lose my strength. If he didn't have a red flag before, he should have had one now, because Delilah immediately goes, and a lot of times she was doing this when he was asleep, you know. She binds him with the 7 bowstrings, and then she yells, because it's like a stupid game. A lot of people say this, right? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So she yells, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he wakes up out his sleep and immediately busts out the bowstrings. So Delilah said, well, dang, you done made a fool of me because I believed you and you're still strong. Now, I often wonder, did Samson ever ask himself, if I told her this is my weakness, why would she try to bind me with that weakness? I don't know. But anyway, the stupid stupid game starts over, okay? So Delilah says, Samson, you my man. Tell me what makes you weak. You keep mocking me and telling me lies. Be honest. So Samson quickly, and he's quick, so that's probably why she believes him too. He says, if you bind me with new ropes that have never been used on anything else, I'll lose my strength. So what did she do? This heifer promptly binds him in the ropes in his sleep. And I said, dang, this man must sleep hard. Some people do. She says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. Baby Samson hopped up and said, bloop, baby, that rope broke like it was made out of paper. And so Delilah says, doggone, man, you keep lying to me. You said you love me. Tell me what will make you weak. Tell me. So Samson, quick again. He says, if you weave my hair through this loom, then I'll be weak. Okay, another thing that you need to know about Samson, you know that they didn't cut his hair, but Samson very much wore locks like mine, except he wore his in 7 big locks. So he has 7 total locks on his hair, and that was it. So he says, if you weave my 7 locks into the loom, then I'll lose my strength. She said, oh, okay. So he goes to sleep, and she uses a batten. It's like a tool that you can use to weave stuff through the loom and knock it tighter as well. I'll put a picture up. But anyway, she weaves his locks through the loom, and she says, y'all, it's kind of funny. She says, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. Samson jumped up or yanked that thing out his hair, and he was ready to fight. Oh, the whole time, guys, there are actual men hiding in the room. Like once he goes to sleep, they come into the room. She signals them and they hide. But this is the thing. They never actually jump out because they kind of wait to see what his response is. So Samson never knows they're there. Time goes on, and I don't know how long. She was nagging this man, pestering this man. You just won't tell me what make you weak. Crying, hooping, hollering. You don't love me. Using emotional manipulation. So finally, Samson gets serious. I don't know. He must have some feelings for her. He opened up to her and he said, look, my hair has never been shaved. These 7 locks on my head have never been shaved. And that is the source of my strength. Delilah could instantly tell that he was being real honest. He had opened his heart to her. These men been hiding for who knows how long it had been. Because even the 4 times would have been too much for me to be in there hiding. This had went on, and the Bible says that he kept doing this. And so she knew he was telling the truth. So she went back to the 5 leaders and she said, look, he has really opened his heart to me, and I believe he's telling the truth. He says you need to shave his head. So y'all need to come up to my home one more time and let's try this again. Because baby, she wanted them 5,500 pieces of silver. That night, Delilah, she hums and sings Samson to sleep, and she makes sure that he's laying with his head on her lap. Just couple goals, you just lay on each other sometimes, and that's what he did, and he went to sleep. When he was asleep, she signaled the man like, come on, and he came and he cut Samson's 7 locks off, and then they bind him. And so she says, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. So he woke up and he said, I'll go out just like I have every other time. I'm gonna break free and break loose. But alas, his hair had been cut, and when he tried to break free, his strength was gone. So the Philistines put his eyes out. They took his sight. So maybe that was a smart move if you got somebody that could 1,000 people with a jawbone. But I'm gonna be honest, if it were me and this was my mortal enemy and they 1,000 people with a donkey jawbone, baby, I'm not gonna waste no time. We're gonna you right there. I'm not even gonna let you get a hand on me. But they put his eyes out and they took him to what I describe as like a prison. And they also put bronze fetters on him, like cuffs, the same kind of things they used on slave ships. And it was some tough chains that he should not have been able to get out of. They paid Delilah and they made Samson a grinder in the prison. So I really looked hard to find a picture because I've seen one in real life, and it's like a stone and you push it around in a circle to grind stuff up out of time. So Samson is blind, I'm sure in pain, and also weaker than he's ever been, and he's got to push this grinder all day long. Also, while knowing that the woman you love betrayed you. At some point, if you capture your enemy, you gotta glow, right? So the Philistines decided they were going to have a big gathering. They were going to celebrate and rejoice, and most importantly, they were going to make a sacrifice to their god Dagon. They were chanting, they were so happy at this feast. They were chanting, our God has delivered into our hands our enemies. They were saying he was a destroyer of our land. He was of our people. He multiplied our dead. Dagon has delivered him into our hands. In the meantime, Samson has been grinding in his prison, and time has gone by the time they get this big celebration organized. Because, this is an event, baby. You got to plan it. Samson's hair is growing back out. He's not shaved completely anymore. He's got a little swing, baby, a little blow in the wind. At some point, your celebration isn't a celebration if you don't parade your enemy around. They tell the people, go get Samson so he can perform for us. They send somebody to go get him, probably a little servant lad, and he led Samson by the hand out. He's supposed to perform for them, probably just walk around blindly stumbling and stuff. They probably just laugh, because that's the kind of time we on right now. Samson says to the person who walked him out, "Can you put my hand on the pillar because I need something strong to lean against? I just need to rest." And they did. They put his hand on the pillar. The people are still celebrating his demise and defeat. Samson is listening. He doesn't have eyes, but he has ears. And he waits until they are at the happiest and merriest. It's just sounding so jovial to him. And he prays. He says, "Lord, please give me strength one more time so that I can get revenge for them taking my eyes. You can take me out with them." All of a sudden, that feeling, that spirit that we talked about the whole time, it comes back over him. He grabs the pillars and he yanks them down, and the whole structure collapses. The people in there are... and so is Samson. The number of people who when he died, were more than all the people that he had total up before. Samson's brothers and all his father's household come to get Samson so that they can bury him. So they bury him between Zorah and Eshcol in the tomb of his father Manoah. Eshcol was a city, and also we know his mom had been barren before, and sometimes after they had one baby, it meant their womb was open to have others. But I don't know if that's the case here because I don't know any of Samson's brothers' names. So brother could also mean other people in your tribe. And also, guys, Samson is from the tribe of Dan. Dan is one of Joseph's brothers, because remember that Jacob's or Israel's 12 sons were the heads of these tribes. That's where Samson came from. Samson had judged Israel for 20 years. So let's go into part 4, my final thoughts. In my opinion, Samson is a perfect example of imperfect people in the Bible. What has always stood out about this story to me is the Nazarite part, because it is emphasized that that was a choice. However, Samson had been named as that from his mother Zorah's womb. So I think this is a story about fate and manifested destiny versus forging your own path, and how sometimes, even in today's time, if you feel like your path is being forged for you, sometimes it is a natural inclination to fight against that. And we see that with Samson, because the women he went for, the actions he did, eating the honey out of the line, everything was against the rules, because I do imagine that that can feel oppressive when your whole life path has been set out for you before you even born. You don't feel like you have a say in it. But as we continue to move forward with the story, some point, and I think it may have been at the very end after his eyes had been put out, it's like he realized this is a path that I am on. Whether I was fated or not, I still made choices that led me to this path. I think in accepting that, he was able to do what he felt like was one final act for his people. Let's go back. Samson liked women, but I don't know if I would call him a womanizer, because it's like he would have this woman here and there. We definitely know he saw prostitutes too, but when he had this woman, he would want that woman. He would be with that woman until he felt betrayed. Sometimes I feel like Samson would set himself up because it would be clear that they're trying to betray him, and he would know it, so he would kind of toy with them, but then he would give them the information that they wanted initially, from his first wife in the riddle to Delilah in the weakness. But to me, that speaks to a man who may have not just been foolish, he may have just been looking for someone to confide in someone that he could trust. Because really, if this is your wife, if this is your person, you ought to be able to tell them your secrets, and it shouldn't be spread to the whole town for 5,500 pieces of silver. But that was Samson. So from that, I learned, be careful who you confide in, because you can't trust everybody. I also got from this story some lessons of tit for tat. So regardless of who is the enemy of who, and this can apply to present times, to me, there are some actions that are just inexcusable. To me, it's never justifiable to say the whole of a group of people is bad, so it's okay to harm them. And again, that applies to 2025. Let's talk about the riddle. When they cheated on the riddle, that was wrong. They were wrong for threatening his wife. That was harmful. But even if he wanted to do something, instead of taking action against those 30 men, he went and harmed 30 other men who may have had children, may have had families. To me, it's just not right. And I said what I said. I am a Black woman. I've never thought it was okay to mass persecute Black people or Native Americans or anybody because they are a group of people. There is no group of people where all of the people are 100% bad, because those people also include little babies and children. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. And I feel like you got a lot of that, because it wasn't just Samson. Let's be clear. Like the Philistines burning his wife and her father. I understand, especially in those days, losing all your fields. Gosh, that was your livelihood, your food, your everything. But it was a thing. Now, it could lead to people dying because it could lead to starvation. But also the wife and the dad did not do it, even though they felt like their actions led to it. This leads to something that I learned growing up. I grew up in what would be considered a rough town, and it's even more rough now, but it was like a retaliation thing. So I'm going to talk gangs, and I'm going to relate it to gangs, because to me, when you start talking retaliation, it's the same thing. In gang culture, you hurt this person, so I'm going to hurt you. So then they hurt this person. Well, that person meant something to this group, so I'm going to come back and hurt even more people from your group. So now that group is even more mad, so I'm going to hurt people that have nothing to do with this. So I'm going to hurt your grandpa, your kids. I've seen this in real life. So when I say what I say, I stand on what I say, right? So I think that retaliation, especially this escalating type of retaliation, is never a good thing. But we get a lot of that in Samson. Now to the positive things that I saw. Samson is also a story of finding your own journey in life. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning when he was fighting his own fate and what had been stated for him to be his fate. But at some point, he decided that I'm going to just be my own man, whether that's falling in love with women that I like. I don't care their background. I'm going to love who I want to love. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. If I want to eat honey out of a carcass, I'm going to do it. But you know what I mean? He just became who he was. And even in the end, when it cost him so much, his freedom, his strength, his eyes, his heart, right? Because he was hurt by what Delilah did, he was able to come back to what he believed in, which was God. And he was able to ask for strength. He was able to get that back. And regardless of what happened, when he got that strength back, it was a journey back to himself. So that is Samson's story. Tell me what you think in the comments. I like to read your comments. I always respond. Tell me, did you know all of these things about Samson? Because this is a wild story. Again, this is part 1. You will see more parts of the Judges, but it won't be the next part because we're going to talk about some other people in the Bible. There are some people just like Joseph. That was a multi-part story that needed to go in order. The Judges, we can always come back to them. So part 2 will be at another time, but trust me, we will be back with another Bible video very soon. So until next time, remember, keep learning, be happy, and always have a blessed day. Bye bye.